Hi everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to my weekly reading wrap up. First, I want to start with a little bit of book mail. Yes, I did already open these because there wasn't any video that I was filming where it was appropriate to open them in it, but I had to share them because they're really pretty. So the first thing I want to share is that I won a giveaway from Lindy Robinson Photography. I follow her on TikTok and she was doing a giveaway on her Instagram for a book that she had photographed the cover for, and it's actually signed by the cover model. So this book is called Keeping It by Rachel Robinson. I've never read anything by her. It came with a few other like cute things. There's a picture on my Instagram of everything. There was this card with like a bunch of the books that she's done. She's done covers for a lot of people like Kendall Ryan, I'm just reading everyone, Mila Cole, Anna Zares. That's super cool. So Talia Hibbert, I love following her. I love seeing all the stuff that's done. And so I got this copy and then it's signed by the cover model, which is really cute. And then I have some book mail from my wish list. Thank you to Monica. She sent me things 2 times in a row because she sent me some of her own works that she did. And then she sent me some stuff from my wish list, which just really made me happy. Thank you so much. It always feels good to get things. So she sent me books 2 and 3 from the Duke's Daughter series, which I read Lady Be Bad earlier this year, and I just wanted to read the rest because it's about these 4 sisters, and the covers are really beautiful. So this is Lady Be Reckless, and this is The Lady Is Daring. So I want to read these soon. They're by Megan Frampton, and they're really pretty. And then I'm so excited about these. So Jennifer Ashley is a author that I really love, and she actually has some historical fantasy romance. And so I have the first one, which is called Penelope and the Prince and Penelope, or Penelope and Prince Charming. And I haven't read it yet, but it's the first book in the Nigeria series. And the rest of them are actually like self-published. So she sent me book 2, The Mad Bad Duke, book 3, The Highlander Ever After, and then book 4, which is The Longest Night. And I guess these are fantasy romance, but they're also like a fairy tale retelling in some way. And I'm so excited. They're so beautiful. So thank you, Monica, for the gift. You really didn't have to do that. But if you want to see this, how I feel so... But whatever, I always have my Amazon wish list down below, as well as my P.O. box. If you want my P.O. box because you want to send me some of your work, please maybe reach out to me first just so I can let you know if it's a book that I feel like I'll get to. Obviously, I really like to be focused on romance or fantasy romance or contemporary romance. So if you send me something that's not one of those, I'm not guaranteeing I'll get to it, and I don't want you to waste your time. That's something that I always bring up. So let's go ahead and get into what I read this week. It was a really, really good week. I read 14 books, and I'm really excited. I'm really excited about it. A couple of them were arcs. A lot of them were historical romance, and I'm still in a historical romance binge, so more of that is coming. So the first book I read was A Lie for a Lie by Helena Hunting, however we say her name. This was the first book in this trilogy, which I actually read book 2, 3, and then book 1. This is a surprise baby, and I like this kind of surprise baby because it's the surprise baby where the woman doesn't know who the guy really is, and so she looked and tried to find him, and he kind of told a fib about who he was. He didn't lie about who he was, but he was a hockey star, and he just went by his normal name instead of his, like, well-known name, and he fibbed about what he did for a living because he didn't want her to know. But this was cool because this was a forced proximity book. The way this story starts is really cute. He's going to Alaska to fish with his brother, and then his brother's wife is having some issues with her pregnancy, so his brother has to stay home. And he decides to go on anyway because he wants the time alone. And then we have this girl who she's going there to, I think Lainey's her name. She's going there to do some research for her thesis. and she ends up being in kind of a bad situation, and they kind of fall for each other and end up, he invites her to stay in his house, which is much safer and nicer and warmer than the place she's going to be staying. And so they have this like 2 weeks together, and then he unexpectedly gets called back because of the pregnancy of his sister-in-law, and they lose touch with each other. And then it's about 18 months later that they run into each other again. And I loved it. It was heartbreaking. It was beautiful. It's so good. I do love Secret Baby, but usually only when the woman didn't have a chance to tell the guy. Like, she didn't know who the person was. Because to me, that's the only reason why you, like, wouldn't tell someone that you're pregnant. So, but I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. It was really good. Then I read Kissing Lessons by Stefanie London. This was an arc. This was really cute. There's a lot of different tropes that it has. This is a student and teacher, a professor and a student, but she's like 25 and he's like 35, and she's only taking a class like once a semester because she doesn't have a lot of money, and she actually doesn't even have her GED because she had to drop out of school to help take care of her younger siblings. She has 3 younger siblings, and a father who can't get a job. It's kind of sad. And yeah, so they actually meet each other before she finds out that he's her professor. They have a really good banter in this book. It was really sexy, really fun. And then there obviously is some drama of she needs to be around for her family, and he's trying to encourage her that she deserves more, but she doesn't know how to go about getting that. And that's kind of the drama of the story. So I gave this 4 stars. I really liked it. It was a really good arc. I believe this one comes out pretty soon, if it's not out already. I will probably try to find a physical copy of this one. I have to quarantine right now, so I haven't been to the bookstore. But I will probably try to find this one because I really liked it a lot. So then I read Wolfsong by TJ Klune. I didn't do the paranormal readathon, but I heard everyone reading it. I like male books. I like paranormal books. I like werewolf books, so I wanted to give it a go. I gave this a 4.5 star. Upon reflection, I would probably give it a 4 star. 4 stars, I think, is what I gave it on Goodreads. Because I get the hype. I appreciate the hype. I respect the hype. But this does a couple things that I really dislike, even though it's a very longing story, like a very drawn out longing story. And I'm cool with that sometimes. But it's a long book. And the amount of miscommunication and pain and angst level of this book extended over that amount of pages was too depressing for me. This story is beautiful. It is a werewolf story. It is a fated mate story. And the instant of the fated mate finding out, the werewolf is only 10 and the human is 16 years old. And so this person, he's a lot younger than him, and I'd never seen it done that way before, and it was so unique. And as well as this being 2 males who are fated mates, I've only seen that happen one other time, and it was in Cressley Cole's, it wasn't by an owned voice either, and I loved that. So there were lots of things I liked about it, but it was too much. And I did read Ravensong as well later in the week, but I'll just talk about it now. And that, not only did it do another thing I hate, which is it retreads a good portion of the book again, because there's a thing that happens in the first one, and then we see it happen again in this one, and I just don't like stories that way. And I have a feeling that all the stories in this series are going to be that way. And while I did purchase books 3 and 4, And I do want to know what happens with those couples, because all these are male couples and they're all people. I'm very interested in some of them. I'm hoping that one of them at least won't be as agonizing as this one was, because the second one was even worse for the drawn out pain, because there's a few things that are like specifically done that just pissed me off. So that one I gave 4 stars as well. So I really respect it. I understand the hype. I get why everyone loves it, but it's just not for me. It's not the style of a romance that I particularly care for. Then I read Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. So that's out of my normal wheelhouse. No, it's not. I love fantasy, and I really had loved Skyward. And Spensa was such an angry, pissed off girl trying to prove herself to the world. And I really liked a lot of the lessons she'd learned in the first one. And what I loved is Brandon Sanderson does character growth so well. So well. And so the situations we find ourselves in this one, the adventure that Spensa has to go on, we actively see her fighting against her nature, fighting against how she would normally react to something to try to make a better choice for the future. And I really liked that. And a lot of it was subtle. It wasn't banging you over the head with like, I'm choosing different road. This is me making different decision. It just, I felt it. I listened to this on audio and went very quickly. Like, honestly, when I do a fantasy, like I'm about to start Legendborn because I need to get started on that as our buddy read. I'm determined to do that one. I bought it on audio. I will often start a fantasy on audio and then I'll only listen to it for about half an hour a day until I get to the catch. That's what I call it. Until you get to the catch where I can't put it down. And this one, I listened to it straight off the bat 5 hours last Sunday. And then I was like, because of the reading speed I listened to, I was already halfway done with the book. And so the next day I only had a couple hours left. And so I did this book in a whole day, which that's not surprising, right? Obviously, I read a lot of books a day, but I don't usually get through a book like this that quickly. I usually spread it out, and I really loved this. So I gave this 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I love Brandon Sanderson. There is still the hint at a certain romance that I want to happen, but I know it won't be that big of a deal because it is Brandon, so I'm just going to let it go and not get so into it. Then I read Stalker of Mine by Jagger Cole. This was just a quick novella. It's a story of a girl who's being protected / stalked by this one guy, unbeknownst to her. And it was actually really sexy and really fun. And I liked it. There's not a whole lot to say about it. I gave this 4 stars. I read it pretty quickly. I wish this had been a whole story. That often happens. If a novella is really good, I want more of it. And that was definitely the case with this one. Then something happened at the beginning of November, right? We lost Audible Escape. And I only recently found Audible Escape. And I kick myself all the time. I kick myself all the time that I didn't find it sooner because I missed out on so much. Because I haven't found another Audible thing that is going to give me what I need. I really need to look into my library, but I'm lazy as fuck and I don't want to, but I should, because I didn't think that I would like listening to romances as much as I did. I mostly have listened to fantasy if I've listened to a book. That's how I consume my fantasy novels. And it wasn't until this year that I started consuming romance that way, and just it changed the game for me, especially with historical romances. I love listening to historical romances. And so I'm really bummed that I missed out on that until only the last few months. But what happened is we lost Audible Escape, and now everything has rolled into Audible Plus, which has titles that are not only romance focused now. Now it has titles from all genres, but we lost a lot of romance authors. And so I don't know if we'll eventually get them back, because as Audible Plus is around for a while, maybe we'll get more authors added back in, but currently there's not a ton. However, I went through the entire catalog of romance novels, which there were about 900 and some titles, and I picked out some that I thought looked good. And I have gotten lucky with a few. So I listened to Part-Time Lover by Lauren Blakely, and this was adorable. This was literally a couple that they have a meet cute, and then they were supposed to hook up that night, and it didn't work out. And then a year later, they run into each other, and the sparks are immediately there. Neither one of them blames the other for what happened, and they pick up where they left off and begin this super sexy relationship where they are part-time lovers with each other until a certain situation comes up where our hero needs a wife to keep his company. And the heroine is like, we could be part-time husband and wife. And then, of course, when time comes for a divorce, he doesn't want to do it. So I really, really enjoyed this. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was great. Then I read We Own Tonight, One Last Time, and Not Until You, which were also on Audible Plus. And these are by Corinne Michaels. This was the first 3 books in her Second Time Around series, or Second Chance series. They were all about couples who were over 30, and the heroes were either famous or rich. So the first one is about he used to be a boy band star, and he has a one-night stand with this girl, and then it turns out that they are going to work together, I think. I loved it. The second one was about an actor and a gossip columnist who's a divorcee. She's not a gossip columnist, but it's a thing. Loved it, absolutely. And then Not Until You was about this, like, interior designer and this rich London guy who have a fling, and she doesn't sleep with her clients, doesn't do that, and he's like, I'm gonna do whatever I have to do to keep me around you because I want it. So those were, the first one was 5 stars for me, and then the next 2 were 4 stars, 4.5 stars. So I really liked that. So then I read My Last Duchess by Eloisa James. This book really isn't that big. It's actually only, so I didn't read the novella at the end of it. They're both novellas. But I read, so this much of it was My Last Duchess. This is the prequel to The Wilds of Window Castle. I was very excited to read this. This is about Hugo and Ophelia, who, if you've read any of the Wild books, you know that that is the patriarch and the matriarch of this mishmash of wild children, and I was so excited to read it. I ended up giving it a 4 star, which was probably kind of generous, mostly because, number one, there's just not enough there. I needed a full book about them, and I get why. Like, I saw Eloisa's interview on Jess's Instagram about the fact that this was something that her readership asked for, and so she made it, and they had to keep it short because she has other books coming out. But I just wish they would have got a full story, because there was so much there. It was so interesting. Like, he has had a wife die and a wife leave him, so he has had 2 duchesses before, and he has 8 children. One of them is his ward. The rest of them are his children. She is a widow. She has 1 child. She wants to marry again, but she doesn't want to take on his 8 children. And he goes about convincing her. And so it was really beautiful, and I just wanted more. My babies deserved more than they got, okay? They deserved it. I'll stack these up here. So I gave it 4 stars, and I love Eloisa James. You'll see I read some more of her this week as well, but I just wanted more. So then I read the arc for The Duke's Princess Bride by Amalie Howard. I gave this book 4.5 stars. This book was supposed to come out in January. It looks like it's been pushed back to maybe May of 2021. A couple things, and I'll go quickly. Firstly, the setup of this book. This is about a half Indian, half Scottish princess, who is the daughter of the Mahara of Jur, and her mother was a Scottish lady, and she fell in love with her father and so she lives in India. And when she was 16, she fell in love with this duke who was there with his father. Was it his father? I can't remember why he was there, but he was there, and they fell in love. And when he was going to get sent home to England, he proposed to her and asked her to run away, and she wouldn't do that because of duty. So she kind of broke his heart, told him she couldn't run away with him. He was very angry, wrote a nasty letter back saying like he wishes he'd never met her, he hates her, all these things. Not great, but hurt is the fluid, love bleeds when you cut it, okay? So he's very angry. Fast forward 5 years later, and her father gets overthrown by her cousin. Her father gets murdered. She needs to go on the run. So she takes her maid and they hop aboard a ship bound for England so she can go find her mother's family and hopefully be safe. And the ship she hops aboard is the Duke. He is now I can't remember if it's a trading vessel. He's not a pirate, but it does have that vibe of that because we do spend the first half of the book on this ship. And what she had done is her and her maid had bribed some new hires to the ship to take their place. And she ends up in the Duke's bed on accident. And then it's like deja vu for them all because they're like, oh my God, the feelings. But there's a lot of hate between them, right? Because it's like hate is just coming out of them because they both feel like they missed an opportunity. And he's mad because she spurned him, and she's mad because he wrote this horrible letter to her. And so there's just all this hate. And he proposes a fake dating relationship for when they get back to England to keep her safe from rumors. And there's a lot of hate. There is a lot of racial slurs in this to her. There's a lot of hard things to stomach. So when you read the reviews for this book, you may see a lot of people dissing on that. One of the things I didn't know before looking into this is that Amalie Howard, this is an own voices book for her. She has Middle Eastern and Indian descent in her. So anybody who's saying that like this is an own voices story. So you can be upset about how it's written if you don't approve, and there should be trigger warnings for the type of talk that there is because it's hard to read those certain slurs said. But this is a historical romance. It's set in a historically accurate time. The woman in this story, Sarani, she's based on a real Indian princess who fought against British rule. This author did a lot of research, so you can choose to not like this story, but to me it's no different than Her Night with the Duke. There's a lot of praise going around for that book about how the author wrote that one. And I'm not sure, I don't know if that one's even an Own Voices story. And I loved that one too. I absolutely loved that book. I have no qualms to say about it. And to me, this book, I thought was even bolder with the choices that it made and with the culture it tried to represent. And so because I am a white privileged woman, which I hate talking about that, but someone's going to call it out. You guys won't. People in my comments don't call it out. But the stuff people were saying on Goodreads about this book, which ended up this book needed to get pushed back, I don't understand, because this book, it was fantastic. It was diverse. It was exciting. It was thrilling. It was sexy because it's Amalie Howard, and I loved it. I gave it a 4.5 star because the hero pissed me off for too long. That's just a thing that always bugs me. But there's that same hate to love tension that was in the Beauty and the Beast one. I forgot what it's called, but the red cover, the one that I like, we read it a couple months back. And I loved it. So I gave it 4.5 stars, and I don't know about that other parts of it. I can't read sensitively in regards to race or things like that, but I just am so impressed that the author took this on and made this a book. And so that's why it's hard for me, because I can't speak to that part of it. I can only speak as a reader who really loved reading a story about a different kind of heroine, and this was also kind of like an adventure story, and it's the same kind of things I liked about Her Night with the Duke, because Leela is a badass, and she's had to deal with tougher things than the women of the ton, than the perfect flowers who were treated perfectly all the time. And so I loved it. I loved Leela, and she's amazing. And this one isn't about Leela, this is about Sarani, but I'm just saying, I don't see what was insensitive about it. Like, yeah, it's not fun to read racial slurs or whatever, but if everyone had been perfect to this lady in this book, then it wouldn't have been historically accurate. You know? Like, it's not fun. And Sarani is a woman of dignity and beauty and strength, and the way that she reacts to people treating her that way, that's the stuff I would tell my daughter about. That's the stuff that I want to perpetuate in romance. And the way that she stands up for herself to the Duke, perfection. So, 4.5 stars for me. Then I read When the Duke Was Wicked by Lorraine Heath. I listened to this on audio. I really, really enjoyed myself. This is one that I've had on my list since the Fated Mates talked about it. There's a character in this book. Oh, I don't want to spoil it, but I also want you to read it. So if you don't want to know what the crux of the matter is, then just skip until I put the book down. Okay? So the character in this book, she had breast cancer. And we get to see a look at what that would have been like at that time and how it's being dealt with and things like that. Okay? So that is why I picked this book up, because I heard Fated Mates talk about, they did an episode, an interstitial, or it was a Ask Me Anything about people with different diseases and stuff. So I'll put the book down now. Okay, if you're back after the spoiler, I'll tell you that Her Night with the Duke, I gave it 4 stars, but it really was for the reason that I just said during the spoiler, because it's a very unique story. And I'll say that for Lorraine Heath. This is the 5th or 6th book I've read by her, and they all have had plots that I have never read before. This one has a very unique element to the story that blew my mind. However, the romance itself, not my fave. So to me, the romance was like a 3. The story uniqueness was like a 5. And so I settled at a 4 in the middle here. Our hero is very stubborn and frustrating. And there are trigger warnings in this for illness and loss of a spouse. So I'll say that. But this book was fascinating, and I am glad that I read it. And Lorraine Heath, she is awesome. And I listened to this on audio, and it went really quickly. So then, like I said, I read a lot of historical romance. So I finished my reread of The Duke and I won't say anything more about that. I did give it 4 stars this time. So I did vlog the whole experience because I'm planning to hop on that train and vlog all of my reading of these books. And that video should be going up soon after this one. But I had some interesting thoughts. I always do about Julia Quinn. I adore her. But this one, not for the reasons that people might think. This one down a star this time for me, for things I'll talk about in the vlog. But and then the last one I want to talk about, which I just finished reading before filming this, it's why I waited a little bit, is 3 Weeks with Lady X by Eloisa James. This is actually a book from the Desperate Duchesses by the Numbers. And it actually comes before 4 Nights with the Duke, which I read last week, which is the book that we're supposed to have a live show about. But so far, nobody's read it yet. So we might not end up having a live show. So if you're in the Discord and you're wanting to talk about this book, make sure you let me know that you want to talk about it, because otherwise I'll probably cancel that live show and do something else if we don't. But 3 Nights with Lady X, this is about Lady Zenobia India. So she's called India. She had eccentric parents. She has a really unique job. So she actually shapes up households. So she'll get hired by a family to renovate it or help them, reset things. So then we have Tobias Thorne, who is the son of the Duke of VA, who, if you've read the other Desperate Duchesses books, you'll know that he was kind of a notorious rake and he had lots of bastard children, and Thorne is one of them. And he's a made man. I absolutely love self-made men, and he knows that he needs to marry a lady of worth to secure his place in the world. But right now he's currently rich, but he doesn't have a title. So he's planning to court this one girl named Lala. Her name is Arabella, but they call her Lala. And Zenobia gets asked by his stepmother to renovate his house. He doesn't want anything to do with it, but the stepmother is like, he needs you, India. Please come and do this for me. So it was really cute. This is a really stubborn one where they're falling in love, but he's like, I'm not good enough for you. And she's like, I'm not good enough for you. And so they both think that they need to marry other people. And there actually is a lot in this book of Thorne first trying to thrust her onto Darby. I think it's Lord Darby, who is the Duke from 4 Nights with the Duke. And then there's India trying to fall in love with him so that she's not in love with Thorne as much as she is. So I gave this 4.5 stars. I had a great time. I also listened to this one on audio. It was fantastic. I love Eloisa James. And I think that that concludes me having read all of her books now. But there's plenty of the old ones I don't remember, so I'm probably going to go back and read some. Because I really wanted to reread the book, the Duke of Vier's book, because I don't remember it that well. But anyway, those are all of the books that I read this week. Let me know which ones you've read, what you're thinking of them. And I do have a new shout out to make. So I have a new subscriber to the channel. Her name is Allison. She actually joined during my live stream today. So thank you so much, Allison. She joined at the Fated Friend level. So you'll see her name in the end credits. Yeah, I am so excited to have you. It means so much to me. So thank you to everyone else. Thank you for joining. Thank you to my channel supporters. I appreciate you so much. And I'll see you in the next video.